On a clear September morning, America believed it was safe. The streets were busy, the skies were calm, and the nation was moving forward, unaware that within minutes, everything would change forever. This is not just the story of an attack. This is the story of how a single day reshaped American power, fear, freedom, and war, and how the United States entered a conflict with no clear battlefield and no defined end. September 11, 2001 began like any other weekday. Across the country, offices opened, schools began, and airplanes lifted into the sky. Then, 4 commercial flights were hijacked by members of the extremist organization Al-Qaeda. Within less than 2 hours, 2 planes struck the World Trade Center towers in New York. One crashed into the Pentagon, and another fell into a field in Pennsylvania after passengers resisted the hijackers. Nearly 3,000 people were killed, including firefighters, police officers, office workers, travelers, and civilians. The attacks were witnessed live by millions across the globe. The shock was overwhelming. The United States had not experienced an attack on its homeland of this scale since Pearl Harbor in 1941. Fear, confusion, and grief spread instantly. Airspace was shut down, financial markets closed, and the federal government entered emergency operation mode. President George W. Bush addressed the nation, promising justice and warning that America would respond. Investigations quickly identified Al-Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden, as responsible. The group had been operating from Afghanistan under the protection of the Taliban regime, which controlled most of the country. The Taliban had allowed terrorist training camps to function, despite international warnings. The United States demanded that Osama bin Laden be handed over and terrorist networks dismantled. When the Taliban refused, the United States prepared for war. On October 7, 2001, American forces launched Operation Enduring Freedom with support from NATO allies. Airstrikes targeted Al-Qaeda camps and Taliban positions, while special forces worked alongside Afghan anti-Taliban groups. By December, the Taliban government collapsed, and a new interim authority was formed. However, Osama bin Laden escaped, and the conflict did not end. Instead, it transformed into a long insurgency. The Bush administration soon declared a broader war on terror, framing the fight as a global campaign against terrorism everywhere. This doctrine reshaped American foreign policy. Military action, intelligence expansion, and preemptive defense became central strategies. The message was clear. Nations were either with the United States or against it. At home, security became the top priority. Congress passed the USA Patriot Act, expanding surveillance powers and intelligence sharing. Supporters argued it was essential to prevent future attacks. Critics warned it threatened civil liberties. Airports changed forever, with new screening systems, no-fly lists, and visible security measures. In 2002, the Department of Homeland Security was created, combining multiple agencies into a single national security structure. As the war in Afghanistan continued, the focus shifted to Iraq. In 2003, the United States led an invasion, claiming Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction and posed a post-9/11 threat. Despite global opposition, no such weapons were found. After the invasion, the removal of Saddam Hussein led to instability, insurgency, and sectarian violence. The Iraq War became one of the most controversial chapters of the War on Terror. Afghanistan, meanwhile, turned into America's longest war. What began as a mission to destroy Al-Qaeda evolved into nation-building. U.S. and NATO forces trained Afghan security forces, supported elections, and fought Taliban insurgents. Progress was uneven. Corruption, weak governance, and regional complexities slowed success. American public support declined as years passed. Another defining element of the War on Terror was detention and interrogation. In 2002, the United States opened the Guantanamo Bay Detention Facility, holding suspected terrorists without traditional trials. Reports of harsh interrogation methods raised global concern. Human rights organizations criticized the practice, while the U.S. government defended it as a security necessity. Through intelligence operations, drone strikes, and special forces raids, the United States continued targeting terrorist leadership. The most significant moment came in May 2011, when U.S. Navy SEALs killed Osama bin Laden in Pakistan. President Barack Obama announced the news, declaring justice had been done. For many Americans, it brought emotional closure, but it did not end terrorism.
New threats emerged, including ISIS, which rose from instability in Iraq and Syria. In 2014, ISIS captured major territory, declared a caliphate, and carried out brutal attacks. The United States once again led an international coalition, using air power and local forces to defeat the group. ISIS lost its territory by 2019, but extremist ideology remained. At home, the impact of the War on Terror was lasting. Millions of veterans returned from combat zones. The financial cost reached trillions of dollars. Civil liberties, national security, immigration, and foreign policy were reshaped. A generation grew up in a world defined by security.